Welcome to Beautiful Thrift Homemaking. I'm Linda, and I'm reading through a vintage cookbook. It was published in 1917. I have a reprint here from Dover Publications. This book is called 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband, and we're in chapters 119 and 120 today, which is in the month of February in the storyline, because we are following the first year of married life for Bettina and her husband Bob. And Bettina is a happy homemaker who shares her recipes with us each chapter and a little bit of a storyline also. So chapter 119, Another Oven Dinner. Bettina heard a step on the porch and quickly laying aside her kitchen apron, rushed to the door to meet Bob. Her rather hilarious greeting was checked just in time at sight of a tall figure behind him. Bettina, this is Mr. McGregor of McGregor and Hopkins, you know. Mr. McGregor, my wife, Bettina. I've been trying to get you all afternoon to tell you I was bringing a guest to dinner and to spend the night. The storm seems to have affected the lines. Oh, it has. I've been alone all day. Haven't talked to a soul. Welcome, Mr. McGregor. I planned Bob's particular kind of a dinner tonight, and it may not suit you at all, but I'm glad to see you anyhow. Mr. McGregor murmured something dignified but indistinct, as Bob cried out heartily, Well, it smells good anyhow, so I guess you can make a chance, eh, McGregor? I just read that wrong. I guess you can take a chance, eh, McGregor? Bettina had a hazy idea that Mr. McGregor of McGregor and Hopkins was somebody very important with whom Bob's firm did business, and although she knew also that Bob had known Mac, as he called him, years before in a way that was slightly more personal, her manner was rather restrained as she ushered them into the dining room a few minutes later. However, the little meal was so appetizing and the guest seemed so frankly appreciative that conversation soon flowed freely. Bob's frank comments were sometimes embarrassing, for instance, when he said such things as, Matrimony has taught me a lot, McGregor. I've learned, well, now you'd never think that all this dinner was cooked in the oven, would you? Well, it was. Baked ham, baked potatoes, baked apples, and the cake. Bettina's cakes, I call 'em. You see, my wife thinks of things like that. A good dinner and saving gas, too. Oh, Bob, said Bettina with a scarlet face. You needn't be embarrassed, Bettina. It's so. I was just telling Mac as we came in that two can live more cheaply than one, provided the other one is like you, always coaxing me to add to our bank account. It's growing, too, and I never could save before I was married. The dinner consisted of baked ham, baked potatoes, head lettuce, Roquefort cheese dressing, bread, butter, baked apples, and Bettina's cakes. And at the end of this chapter, we have the recipes for her baked ham, head lettuce with Roquefort cheese dressing, baked apples, and Bettina's cakes. Okay, after we read the next chapter, 120, we'll look over the recipes in detail. Chapter 120, Bob Makes Popovers. Bettina was busily setting the table in the dining room when Bob appeared. Oh, Bettina, said he, in a disappointed tone, why not eat in the breakfast alcove? I'd like to show McGregor how much fun we have every morning. Won't he think we're being too informal? I want him to think us informal. The trouble with him is that he doesn't know that any simple brand of happiness exists. His life is too complex. Of course, we're not exactly primitive, but our electric percolator and toaster... sorry, Bob, but you can't use the toaster this morning. I'm about to stir up some popovers. Well, I'll forgive you for taking away my toy, inasmuch as I do like popovers. Let me help you with them, Bettina. This is one place where you can use my strong right arm. Yes, indeed I can, Bob. I'll never forget those splendid popovers that you made the first time you ever tried. They look simple, but not very many people can make good ones. The secret of it is in all the beating. she said, as she stirred up the smooth paste, and then in having the gem pans and the oven very hot. Well, these'll be good ones then, said Bob, as he set about his task. You light the oven, Betty, and put the gem pans in, and then before you have changed things from the dining room to the alcove, I'll have these popovers popping away just as they ought to do. The percolator was bubbling, and the popovers were nearly done when they heard Mr. McGregor's step. He's exactly on time, chuckled Bob. That's the kind of a methodical fellow he is in everything. Well, there's no time when promptness is more appreciated than at mealtime, said Betty decidedly. I like him. Come on out here, called Bob cheerfully. This is the place in which we begin the day. We'll show you the kind of a breakfast that'll put some romance into your staid old head. I made the popovers myself, and I know they're the best you can ever they're the best you ever saw, likewise the biggest, and they'll soon be the best you've ever eaten. When Bob had finished removing the popovers from their pans, the two men took their places at the table to the merry tune of the sizzling bacon Bettina was broiling. I never entertained a stranger so informally before, she said, and I was never such a comfortable guest as I am at this minute, said Mr. McGregor, looking down at his breakfast, which consisted of grapefruit, oatmeal, bacon, popovers, and coffee. And we have Bettina's recipes for the popovers in this chapter. And so next episode, we're going to move on to the month of March. And we did begin in the month of June. So if you've missed those and want to know more of the storyline and who these people are, you would want to start way back with the chapter 1. So in chapter 119, we have Bettina protecting her clothing with an apron. We talked about that. We decided that in 1917, clothing was a little more precious and laundry was a little harder to do. Therefore, people, particularly women working in the kitchen, would wear an apron, a full coverage apron, over their clothing in order to keep it from getting grease splattered on it and flour dusted on it and so forth. So Bettina is following that pattern. She's got an apron on when she answers the door, just before she answers the door, as she hears Bob coming up. She's surprised that he has a guest with him. And I guess the afternoon must have been stormy. The phones apparently weren't working well. And Mr. McGregor is there not only to be a guest for dinner, but also an overnight guest. And we did see Bettina's guest room and how she prepared that. It's always at the ready. And so I'm sure that he'll be staying there happily. 1 Peter 4:9 tells us to offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. And here we have Bettina doing just that. Not a word of complaint did she utter. And she welcomed her guest and made him feel at home. But she is a little embarrassed by the compliment her husband is giving her. Romans 12:10 says, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. And 1 Thessalonians 5:11 tells us, encourage one another and build each other up. And this is what Bob is doing. He's putting these verses into practice by complimenting Bettina for her frugality. He says two can live more cheaply than one. And basically he's saying that Bettina is very careful with her expenses. And also she's really encourages Bob to save money, and that their saving account can be growing during their first year of marriage. All right, so those are some good ideas there and some good modeling for us. So the baked ham is made with 1 pound of sliced ham, 3/4 of an inch thick, 14 cloves. Those would be whole cloves. They're little pokey things. 1/2 cup vinegar, 1/2 cup water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of mustard, which is going to be the dry powder mustard. Remove the rind from the ham. Stick the cloves into both sides. Place in a pan just the size of the meat. Pour the vinegar, sugar, water, and mustard well mixed over the ham. Baste frequently. Bake in moderate oven until crisp and tender, about 45 minutes. And a moderate oven, we learned, is 325 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I would say that it's typical in our day to find that our hams are already pre-baked and pre-seasoned also with some kind of a glaze or such as that. But if you do find a ham that needs cooking, here's a way you can do that. And then the head lettuce with Roquefort cheese dressing for 3 portions is made with 1 head of lettuce, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 3 tablespoons oil, 1/8 teaspoon pepper, 1/4 cup Roquefort cheese, 1 tablespoon vinegar. Cream the cheese, add salt, pepper, and vinegar. Add the oil gradually. Mix well, shake thoroughly. Pour over the lettuce and serve. All right, so that's a nice, simple side dish. And then for dessert, we have those baked apples. And they actually probably are not for dessert. They're probably served with the ham, come to think of it. Baked apples for 4 portions would be 4 apples, 6 tablespoons brown sugar, 4 tablespoons granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 4 marshmallows, and 1 teaspoon of butter. And here's what you do. Wash and core the apples of uniform size. Mix the sugar and cinnamon together. Fill the apples. Press a marshmallow in each apple also. Dot the top with a piece of butter. Place the apples in a pan. Add the remaining sugar. Cover the bottom with water and bake until tender, 25 to 30 minutes, basting often. Serve hot or cold. So I see if you had your ham in the oven and your apples in the oven also, side by side, you were going to open that oven to do the basting of the ham, and you're going to open that oven to also baste those baked apples. So you could be opening the oven for both of those things during the baking time. And the ham will be taking a bit longer than the apples, so you're going to watch those apples. For 8 cakes, you're going to have 1 cup of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of powdered cloves, 1/3 a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons melted butter, 1/2 teaspoon soda, 1/4 teaspoon baking powder, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 1 egg, 1/3 a cup sour milk. Mix and sift the dry ingredients. Add the egg and the sour milk. Beat 2 minutes. Add the melted butter. Beat 1 minute. Fill well-buttered muffin pans 1/2 full. Bake in a moderate oven 20 minutes. All right, so this is kind of a cinnamony muffin. And I think the sour milk, you could use buttermilk for that. That 1/3 cup of sour milk could be 1/3 of a cup buttermilk. And those are probably nice, light, and flavorful muffins. Now in chapter 120, Bob is making popovers. I have not had popovers before. I do see a picture of them in one of my cookbooks. It's not something that I've ever had. So in this chapter, we're having breakfast now with the guest, Mr. McGregor or Mac. And he's going to be eating with them at the breakfast alcove, which is a little nook in the kitchen with the kind of a built-in dinette. And it is considered to be very informal to eat there. Now you see that our Bettina is a little worried about that informality with this guest, being that he is somebody who Bob respects and works with. And Bob was hoping to get to use the electric toaster in the alcove along with the coffee percolator. And he called his electric toaster his toy. So that lets us know that the electric toaster has not been out all that long. Again, this is 1917. Bob helps, though, in the kitchen to beat the popovers, and the paste for them, the batter needs to be stirred really vigorously. And so he's going to put his muscle into that and help out, and then he's going to brag about it. So the batter is going to go into very hot pans. They're molds, which are called gem pans, G-E-M. We've encountered these before, apparently a common thing to cook foods in molds back in that day, and baked in a very hot oven. And then they're going to have coffee made in that percolator, and Bettina's also serving bacon. So here's the recipe for 8 popovers. 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk, 1/2 a teaspoon of salt, and 1 egg beaten well. You see, very simple ingredients with things that probably are on hand in most kitchens. At least if you ever do any baking, and if you eat at home and you have eggs and milk at home. So add the milk slowly to the flour and salt, stirring constantly until a smooth paste is formed. Beat and add the remainder of the milk and the egg. So it said to add the milk slowly until the paste is formed. So I guess the paste will be formed before you've added that entire cup of milk. So then you're just going to continue and add the rest of the milk and the well-beaten egg. Beat vigorously for 3 minutes. Fill very hot gem pans 3/4 full. Bake 30 minutes in a hot oven. They are done when they have popped at least twice their size, and when they slip easily out of the pan. Iron pans are best. So, we have cast iron. I don't know if any of you have a cast iron muffin tin or something like that, but those are the popovers. Okay, so this time we enjoyed 2 chapters to end up the month of February, and thank you for joining me. And it's kind of fun, I think, to see how life was back in 1917. See you again soon.